Hello, assalamu alaikum. This is Imtiaz Ahmed. Today I'll be presenting our project on extrovert versus introvert behavior analysis. So before we dive in, let me introduce my team. We are working together on this project, which explores the difference between extrovert versus introvert and how their behaviors impact their daily lives, social interactions, and online presence. So if I start with the introduction, basic one, in this course study, in this project, we aim to explore the major differences in behavior between the extroverts and introverts based on several key factors, such as social media interactions, time alone, social media activity, and psychological responses to socializing. And why we basically chose this topic? Because to understand the relationship between personality traits and behavior is essential in today's world. So where social interactions and digital presence play a significant role in shaping our lives. So the key variables that we focused on is like time spent alone, social event attendance, number of close friends, or posting on social media to better understand how introversion and extroversion affect day by day in our behavior. And the purpose of this study is to test common assumptions about introverts and extroverts, such as whether extroverts attend more social events and post more on social media, or whether introverts prefer solitude and feel drained after socializing. So what is the main problem in this project, in this analysis? The challenge is understanding extroversion and introversion lies in the lack of concrete data-driven insights that compare the real-world behaviors of these two personality types. So the current understanding while we were doing the project is widely believed that extroverts are more outgoing and social, and where obviously introverts prefer solitude, and these assumptions are often based on some evidence rather than rigorous data analysis. So the research gaps that we found is this study aims to fill out those gaps by examining actual behavior patterns through measurable data, and such as how much the individual spend more, how many events they attend, and etc. So why is it matters really? To understand these differences can help us tailor social interactions, mental health support, and even digital marketing strategies to better fit the need of each personality type. So the purpose of this analysis is to compare the behavior of extrovert and introverts using a range of statistical tests to uncover meaningful patterns that align or contradict common beliefs. So there are some key factors that we chose to do the analysis is if extrovert attends more social events than introverts, and if extroverts more active on social media than introverts, and does introversion correlate with spending more time alone and feeling drained after socializing. So the approach, we proceeded with hypothesis testing, we proceeded with the correlation analysis and regression models, and we also added a chi-square test to analyze the relationship between personality type and variables like time spent alone, like social activity or online presence. And the expected outcome throughout this project is we expect to find that extroverts engage more in social events and are more active on social media, while introverts spend more time alone and feel drained after socializing. So thank you. This is all.
Hello, I'm Hadi Matrusha, and I will now start by explaining the dataset. The dataset that we chose is extrovert versus introvert behavior data. It consists of variables such as time spent alone, stage fear, social event attendance, going outside, drain after socializing, friend circle size, post frequency, and personality. The raw data has 2,900 observations, and after processing by removing the null values, we are left with 2,585 observations. For the data analysis, I will start by explaining the two sample hypothesis tests. Two variables are chosen for this test, which is time spent alone and personality. The test is about how introverts spend their time alone is not equal to how extroverts spend their time alone. Firstly, we will start by making the hypothesis statement. For null hypothesis, mean introvert is equal to mean extrovert. For alternative hypothesis, mean introvert is not equal to mean extrovert. Next step is test statistic. We use 95% confidence level. For manual calculation, we can use this formula, but since we use a large dataset, we can use RStudio by typing like this. The test time spent alone personality data equal df, and it will show the result of t equal to negative 50.895. Next step is finding degrees of freedom. This is the formula used in calculation, and by using RStudio, we can get the df from the same coding like before, which is t-test. And as you can see, we can get the df from the same coding, and our degree of freedom is 2481.7. Then we will find the critical value. This coding is used to find critical value, which is Qt 0.025. 0.025 is alpha divided by 2, and df degree of freedom 2481.7. And it will show 1.96 as the critical value. Okay, after getting all the values, we can draw the graph to see if the test statistic falls under the shaded area or not. Our test statistic, which is negative 50.895, falls under the shaded area. So that means we will reject the null hypothesis. So we can conclude that null hypothesis is rejected, and there is sufficient evidence that the mean time spent alone by introverts is not equal to the time spent alone by extroverts. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Amalini Hanis, and in this video I will explain on correlation test and regression test. First, for correlation test, People who spend more time alone tend to have smaller friend circles. For the hypothesis statement, we have H null and alternative H. For H null, we have rho equals to 0, which means there is no linear correlation between two variables. For alternative H, we have rho not equals to 0, which means there is a linear correlation between two variables. So next, we have test statistic, and this is the formula and the code in RStudio. From the code, we get t test statistic equals to negative 52.2622. So next, for t critical value, we are given 95% confidence level. So from the code RStudio, we got t critical value equals to negative 1.9609. So next, for the conclusion, since t test statistic equals to negative 52.262 is less than t critical value equals to negative 1.96, we reject the null hypothesis. There is sufficient evidence to conclude that there is significant negative linear correlation between the time spent alone and friend circle size at the 95% confidence level. Okay, so for regression test, attending more social events is associated with having a larger friend circles. For a hypothesis statement, at H null, we have beta 1 equals to 0. For H alternative, we have beta 1 not equals to 0. And for the test statistic, this is the formula. And for the code in RStudio, we get t test statistic equals to 55.5333. So next, for t critical value, we have given 95% confidence level. So in the code RStudio, we got a t critical value equals to 1.9609. And lastly, for the conclusions, since t test statistic equals to 55.533 is greater than t critical value equals to 1.96, so we reject the H null. There is sufficient evidence to conclude that a linear relationship exists between friend circle size and social events attended at 0.05. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. This is Muhammad Abdullah from section 5. In our project 2, I'll be presenting the chi-square test of independence and the conclusion. So let's begin by understanding what we are testing. Now we will organize the data to explore this relationship. Here is the contingency table, as you can see, which shows us the number of introverts and extroverts who are reported stage, which is fair yes or no or yes. For example, as you can see, there is 1,338 said no to stage fair, while 111 said yes. In contrast, 79 introverts said no, and 1,299 said yes. So in RStudio, we use the table function to create this table. It will help us to prepare data for the chi-square test. For the next slide, now we will apply the chi-square test in our programming. We use the chi-square test function. This gives us the chi-square statistics and degree of freedom, and of course the p-value. The formula behind the test is basically this one, which is where the O is observed value and the E is expected value under the independence. So here you can see the outputs of the show. The x-squared test is equal to 2120.6. The degree of freedom is 2, and the p-value is less than 2.2 exponential minus 16. So the next slide. So what does the output means? So the chi-square statistic is basically two. As you can see, this is the result actually. The chi-square statistics in 2020.6, a large value, and the degree of freedom is 2. And the p-value is, as you can see here, the 2.2 exponential minus 16 is very small. Since the p-value is much smaller than 0.05, we reject the null hypothesis. There is a significant relationship between the personality type and the stage fair. So the next slide is the residual analysis part. So it looks deeper using residuals. Residual shows how much each observed value differs from the expected. A large residual is equal to, it means actually a strong contribution to chi-square statistics. So here we use the RStudio to paint chi-square test residuals, and as you can see, here is the outputs of the residual, where I can see. So the residual tells us the extroverts more says yes to stage fair than expected, and the introverts also fewer no to stage fair, which is minus 23.23, and DS is 22.258. So it can be easily confirmed that the stage fair is not really distributed, and introverts are more likely to experience in the extroverts. So the next slide is the conclusion. So for the conclusion is since the p-value is less than 0.05, of course very much less than 0.05, so we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is a significant relationship between personality type and stage fair. So this is the conclusion of the chi-square test. So that is the end of the calculation and mathematical part of our project. Now we will go through the conclusion. For the conclusion, let's wrap up with what we learned actually. So the real data analysis, cleaning, selecting, and processing. So we learned this thing, and also the statistic testing in our programming, how chi-square and correlation and regression can be done in our programming, and also practical data handling, which is outlier detections. So the key findings of our entire project is introverts spend more time alone, and social events, attendance, percentages like friend circle size, and also the introvert have higher stage fright. Based on the chi-square test, we can understand that. So this was the simple explanation of chi-square test and the conclusion. Thanks for watching the video. that was my part. So thank you.